In this video, we got another episode of the Start Bench Cut series. If you guys don't know what the series is, basically you guys will let me know 3 different players on Twitter at X7Tanaka. I'll put out a tweet asking for 3 players for a Start Bench Cut video, and you guys will let me know in the replies 3 different players, and I'll tell you guys which card I would start, which card I'd bench, and then which card I would cut. So for example, this one right here is going to be Tyler Hero, Westbrook, and Ben Simmons. So I would decide who am I going to start out of these 3 point guards. Would it be Ben Simmons and then maybe throw Russ on the bench and then go Tyler Hero, cut. So if you have these 3 point guards, who should you play and then who should you get off your squad? But guys, let me know in the comment section down below also 3 different players in the YouTube comment section, and I'll respond to every single comment telling you guys who I would start, who I'd bench, and then who I'd cut. So make sure to let me know 3 different players in the YouTube comment section. But looking at the first 3 players of the video, first one is going to be from Kai. He's going to say LeBron, Bantam, and Tracy for small forwards. That one's a little bit interesting, putting T-Mac at the small forward position, because I feel like most people do run him actually at the 3. So I feel like most people actually run Tracy at that shooting guard position. But I feel like if we're still counting him as a small forward, he's got to be the best small forward in the game, because he basically is one of the best cards. So I'll start T-Mac, and then after that, for the bench and the cutting, I think it's a really close debate between LeBron and Bantam, because it really depends what you need. If you're looking for a guy that can knock down threes more consistently and a guy that's just overall going to be better offensively, you go for a guy like Bantam. But if you're looking for a little bit more defense, a guy that just gets better animations, that's going to be LeBron. But they're so close in stats and badges. They're basically the same height, the same wingspan. Bantam does have a little bit more on the reach, but LeBron does have the way better player model. We look at the animations, that's obviously where a guy like Bantam is going to be a lot better. Having the Kyle Kuzma base and the Rudy Gay upper is one of the best jump shots in the game compared to LeBron. Having the Kyle Korver base, which I feel like really does hurt the card, and that's one of my biggest flaws with this new Dark Matter LeBron, is the fact that his jump shot really doesn't feel to be that amazing. And I think for that reason, I'll probably say start Tracy, bench Bantam, and then cut LeBron. But I do think you could kind of flip-flop those 2 guys at the end. You could definitely bench LeBron, cut Bantam, but for me personally, I would start T-Mac, bench Mike Bantam, and then cut LeBron. Next one here is gonna be from Crabbed. Shout out my boy Crab, man, absolute dog on Xbox for competitive. He's gonna say Bantam, Giannis, and Isaac. Now I'm not exactly sure what position he's talking about. I would just assume he's talking for small forward. And once again, I think Bantam's got to be starting. I think he's the best small forward in the game. He's just so complete of a card. He does everything at a high level. He can slash to the basket, has a great jump shot, good dribble sigs, pretty much the best dunk packages, and just all around, I think he's the most complete small forward in the game. But saying that, Giannis and Isaac is now a really close debate. I do want to compare these cards because a lot of people ask me who's better between Jonathan Isaac and Giannis, and you guys got to remember, for this, specific comparison, we are talking about these 3 guys at the small forward position. So we're not including power forward, like who's the better power forward. We are just specifically talking about who's the better small forward between a guy like Giannis and a Jonathan Isaac. So first off, just looking at the wingspans and the height, they're basically the same. Giannis is going to probably have a little bit better of a player model, kind of more of the stocky wide build, and he's also going to have 2 inches on the reach. So I'd give kind of like the player model to Giannis by a decent amount. But looking at their stats, this is where stuff gets so close. I mean, their stats are basically identical. Jonathan Isaac does have a plus 11 3-pointer, so I think his 3 ball is going to be a lot more consistent than a guy like Giannis, and he also does have a way better jump shot. We'll talk about that here more in a second. But defensively, pretty much the same stats. I mean, plus 8 block on Isaac does make a tiny bit of a difference, even though Giannis is probably a little bit better of an interior defender because of that player model and that wingspan and just his animations. Isaac does have a plus 8 block. I mean, their finishing badges, you could say Giannis is a little bit better, but plus 12 post moves, plus 12 post hook doesn't really matter in the long run. But looking at the animations, this is probably the biggest difference in the cards. I think this is where Jonathan Isaac really makes a difference, having the way better size up, the way better escape. I mean, their movement behind the back is basically the same, but he's also got a better jump shot. They both got the normal leaner, so they're very similar cards at that small forward position. Obviously, Giannis is going to have 14 more Hall of Fame badges, and that is going to make a tiny bit of a difference, but I don't think like rebound chaser, brick wall, and pick dodger is making too much of a difference on the defensive end. I mean, playmaking wise, I mean, like dimer, floor general, post playmaker, like hyperdrive is nice, but I really think these cards are super close, especially at small forward. But in my opinion, I would take Jonathan Isaac at the small forward position over a guy like Giannis. But if we're talking about power forward, that's where things could completely change, and you could definitely make a real argument for Giannis being the better power forward. But for this one from Crabbed, I would say start Mike Bantam, bench Jonathan Isaac, and then cut Giannis. Looking at the next one here from Baron, he's going to say Chet, Bob, and Dirk. So very 3 close best power forwards, I would say. For me, this one's going to be start Dirk Nowitzki. I think he's just a little bit better than a guy like Chet and Bob. I think he's got a better jump shot than a Chet, and defensively, I think he's going to provide you a little bit more defense, being 7'1" compared to Bob, who's only going to be 6'9". So for me personally, I would start Dirk, and then between Chet and Bob, I would take Bob just because his defense isn't that much worse than a guy like Chet's, and his offense is going to be so much better. So for me, I would start Dirk, bench Bob, and then cut Chet, but all three really, really good power forwards. Next one is going to be Mikal Bridges, Jaylen Brown, and Cam Reddish. I think Cam Reddish honestly is going to start or be benched. I'm not exactly sure because Jaylen Brown's going to be getting cut. I do think he's a good shooting guard. I just don't think he's on the same level as the Cam Reddish and a Mikal Bridges. For me personally, I think you've got to give the edge to Mikal just because he's probably a little bit more complete at that shooting guard spot. So I'd say start Mikal Bridges, bench Cam Reddish. I mean, actually, I don't know, man, because Cam Reddish is such a good shooting guard. He's 6'8" with a really good jump shot, play solid defense. I would say this one's kind of a toss-up between Cam Reddish and Mikal Bridges. I'll say start Mikal Bridges, bench Cam Reddish, and then cut Jaylen Brown, but I really think that's a really close one between Cameron Reddish and Mikal Bridges. Next one is going to be Tyler Hero, Westbrook, and Ben Simmons. For me, this one is pretty straightforward. I would say start Ben Simmons, still a top 3, top 5 point guard in the game. I would say you want to bench Russ. He's still a very good offensive card, just lacks a little bit of defense. And then Tyler Hero, another really good offensive point guard. I just feel like for the meta of the game, I like Westbrook a little bit more because he's going to be so much better of a rim runner, and defensively they're about the same. Hero might be a slightly better defender, but overall I would say start Ben Simmons, bench Westbrook, and then cut Tyler Hero. Next one is going to be James Wiseman, Mark Eden, and Chris Kaman for center. For this one, I would say start James Wiseman and pretty much just do it in order. I would say start James Wiseman, bench Mark Eden, and then cut Chris Kaman. I personally don't like inside bigs, but you got to like appreciate how good Mark Eden is on the interior, whether it's finishing around the rim, getting offensive rebounds, getting blocks, steals, interior stops, just contesting shots. Like, he is such a good defender, makes such a big impact, underneath the basket on both sides of the ball. So for me, I would start James Wiseman, bench Mark Eden, and then cut Chris Kaman. Looking at the next one is going to be Mikal Bridges, RJ Barrett, and Cameron Reddish. Once again, a very close debate, but I think it's going to be the same thing. Start Mikal Bridges, bench Cam Reddish, and then cut RJ Barrett. But I will say RJ is not a bad shooting guard at all. I think he's really elite at that shooting guard position, has a really good jump shot, and is going to be a very solid all-around defender. Next one is going to be Gary Payton, Denny, and Ben. For me, this one really just comes down to Payton and Ben. I think Denny's going to be getting cut. I like Gary Payton and Ben Simmons just a little bit more than a guy like Denny, even though Denny is kind of just like the budget version of a Ben Simmons. If we compare the cards though, Gary Payton and Ben, I mean, obviously Ben's going to have 7 inches on the card on Gary Payton, and also a way bigger wingspan and a way better player model. So obviously that's going to go to Ben, and that's probably going to be the biggest difference between the cards. But if we're talking about stats, I mean, this Gary Payton card has a lot better stats defensively than a card like Ben Simmons. He's got a +7 ball handle, which is really nice. +29 3-pointer is probably the biggest difference in favor for Gary Payton. That jump shot is going to be so much easier to green, at least more consistently. Going to the rim, Ben's obviously going to be a decent amount better as well. It's kind of funny, Gary Payton does have +48 stats, which really doesn't make a big difference, but that is kind of funny to see that Gary Payton actually has more stats, in total, like total stats compared to Ben Simmons. Talking about their animations, this is also a pretty big gap, and I'd say a lot better for a guy like Gary Payton. I think the Paul George size up is much better than a Ben Simmons, and the Trae Young escape is a lot better than the Kobe escape if you know how to use it, and the behind the back being Dame compared to Kawhi is a lot better for Gary Payton. So animations wise, he's got the way better jump shot, he's got the better leaner with the Trae Young, he's got the better dribble sags. Dunk packages wise, I'm not exactly sure. I mean, quick drops Gary Payton does have, but going to the rim, I would say Ben is obviously still going to be a lot better. So it's a really close debate. Badges wise, I would say they're very similar in the count. I mean, Gary's got one more Hall of Fame badge and Hall of Fame limitless, which is going to be super nice. And then defensively, I mean, honestly, I would say Gary's better badges wise. He's definitely better animations wise, and all around stats wise, he's probably better as well. So on paper, Gary looks to be the better point guard, but you got to remember Ben's 6'11" with a really good player model. For me personally though, I'm still going to take Gary Payton just slightly over Ben Simmons. I know a lot of people probably would prefer Ben, and that's perfectly fine to say. Like, that's definitely a very valid answer, putting Ben Simmons over Gary Payton. Just in my opinion, I like Gary a little bit more. So I'd say start Gary Payton, bench Ben Simmons, and then cut Denny. Next one is going to be very similar, Gary Payton, Denny, and Matt. Magic. Now in this case, I do think Magic is a decent amount better than a guy like Gary. I think overall is the second best point guard. So I would say start Magic, bench Gary Payton, and then cut Denny. Next one is going to be Dino, Blake, and Claxton. I'm assuming he's talking at power forward, so I would say it's easily start Dino, and then I'd probably bench Claxton and cut Blake. I really don't think Blake is that good of a power forward, but definitely want to be starting Dino. He's such a good card compared to these other two power forwards. Next one is going to be another Dino and Blake, but this time it's going to be Jokic, and once again, I think it's going to be the same. It's going to be start Dino, bench Jokic, and then cut Blake. I think Jokic is a much better power forward than a Claxton, and a guy like Blake, I think he's super good at the 4, but I would take Dino over Jokic just slightly at that power forward position. Next one is going to be Jason Tatum, Tim Thomas, and Jonathan Isaac. Another pretty easy one in my opinion. Start Jonathan Isaac, bench Tim Thomas, and then cut Jason Tatum. He's just really not on the same level as a Tim Thomas or a Jonathan Isaac. Next one is going to be KP, KG, and AD. I'm assuming he's talking at power forward. For this one also, I feel like is very close between a Kevin Garnett and Anthony Davis. You definitely want to be starting Kristaps. He's 7'3" at power forward, and it's just the most glitchy card in the game. But between KG and AD, it is a very close debate, and I honestly don't know who's better. I think KG, for most people, will say is the better power forward just because his animations are going to be better. He's got a better jump shot. For me, though, I think it's so close between these two cards. I will give probably the edge to Kevin Garnett. I just want to quickly check their stats. Animations-wise, height-wise, are probably all about the same. Stats-wise, I mean, very similar. AD's got maybe a little bit better all-around stats. You look at the animations, this is obviously where KG is going to be better. He's got the better size up. He's got the better motion style. He's got the better behind the... Or no, he actually doesn't have the better behind the back. I thought KG had Dame and Anthony Davis had Trae Young. But yeah, all around, I would say it's a really close debate. I feel like for the jump shot difference, I probably will give KG over a guy like Anthony Davis. So it's going to be start KP, bench KG, and then cut Anthony Davis. Next one is going to be Ben, Magic, and LaMelo. I would start LaMelo, bench Magic, and then cut Ben Simmons. I think these could be the 3 top point guards in the game. Like I said, I'd probably take Gary over a guy like Ben Simmons, but it's going to be a super close debate. And then the last one here, the video guys, is going to be Billy, Scotty, and Vince Carter. I'm assuming he's talking at shooting guard, and for me personally, I would go start Billy Knight, bench Vince Carter, and then cut Scottie Pippen. I think Pippen as a small forward and just a all-around card is better than a guy like Vince Carter, but if we're specifically talking about at shooting guard, I do like a guy like Vince a little bit over Pippen because of his offense and just his ability to score the ball a lot higher than Scottie Pippen. But yeah, guys, let me know in the comment section down below. Like I said at the start of the video, 3 different players, and I'll let you guys know who I'd start, who I'd bench, and then who I would cut. But hopefully you guys did enjoy the video, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.